Today, you are going to learn how to reclaim your personal power, exactly what that is, and how you can use it to your advantage in your law practice. Hello, my friend. How are you doing today? So, funny story that relates directly to this podcast episode today about personal power. It's just such a perfect example. And when I talk about personal power, which I'm going to define shortly, it really relates to everything that you decide to do in your life and in your practice. It relates to how you go through your day, the decisions that you make and follow through on. I get so many questions about how do you just do what you're going to do? How do you put it on your calendar and you promise yourself that you're going to do it and then you do it? And I will tell you exactly how I do it because I will share with you a story that happened just before I hit record on this podcast. There were multiple things that happened that I could have said, no, I'm not going to record my podcast today. We're going to figure something else out. We're going to put up another best of episode. We're going to do something else. But I really wanted to talk about this topic of personal power. I have my outline, all that good stuff. And what happened is I got off a call with a client. Pretty much immediately after that call, my dog started having a seizure. And my first reaction obviously is to help him and, clean up after him and feed him and make sure that he's okay. He's fine. He's doing well. But also what happened is that dinner was made. I could be eating dinner right now. I could be relaxing on the couch, having a meal, watching television. I could be, doing all of those things that are just like, okay, end of day, whatever. We're just going to write it off. I'll do the podcast some other time tomorrow. I'll put up a best of episode. I could have had all of these excuses for me to not record this episode today, but I decided that I was going to do it. Even while I was hitting record, I had a couple bumps in the road. One, I started and it didn't record. I had a couple intros that weren't quite the way that I wanted them to be. So I needed to start over. And these kinds of things can derail someone who is not focused on what they want, decisive in what they want. So maybe for you, it's not necessarily recording a podcast episode, but it's going to the gym. It's making sure you get an assignment done. It's ensuring that you make that dinner date that you had planned with your spouse later in the week. There's so many things that can get in the way between you actually doing what you're doing after you've made the decision to do it. But what allows you to follow through on those decisions, even when there's an easier path, right? A easier path that lets you just relax and do whatever you want, that you promised yourself you were going to do the thing that was going to really help you further your goals in your relationship, in your physical well being, in your business. Well, it's personal power. And that personal power is developed over time. I talk about it all the time, but not necessarily in those words. And it really comes down to being aware of yourself, knowing what you're thinking, knowing what you're feeling. So I'm going to walk you through what I noticed when my brain wanted to start telling me, you know what, just don't do the podcast right now, put it off, do it later tonight. Which, if I tell myself later tonight, I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do it tonight. I want to do it tomorrow morning. Oh, maybe I'll just do a best of episode and so on. But I didn't do that. This is what I did instead. I paused when I noticed the thought that I didn't really want to do the podcast right now. And I questioned it because I actually did want to do the podcast. And the reason I knew that is because in my body, I felt tension. I felt tension and I asked myself, well, why do you feel tension right now? It's because I don't want to be eating dinner right now. I don't necessarily feel like I'm in the best mental space to do a podcast. So I need a break, which I've taken. And I went outside and I gave myself some fresh air and I walked barefoot in the grass, reconnected with myself, those kinds of things, which I feel so very fortunate to be able to do. And once I had the ability to regroup, then I could come here and sit down and be mentally prepared to talk about what I wanted to talk about today. Because when we just kind of go with what our brain tells us, we aren't in our personal power. We aren't directing our brain consciously. We aren't telling ourselves what to do, which is part of what so many lawyers feel and sense as frustration, is because they have these desires to do a particular task, go to the gym, finish up a project, do whatever it is that they've promised themselves that they would do, and then they don't do it. And when they don't do it, they feel really disappointed in themselves. Maybe they feel defeated. And I don't want you to experience that. And I could tell, because I've been doing this long enough, that as soon as I said, you know what, I don't know if I want to do the podcast right now. I'm just so emotionally drained right now because, watching Frankie and cleaning up, that as soon as that thought came, I could predict that I would feel disappointed if I didn't sit down and do the podcast. And that's what told me, look, I need to intentionally direct myself and direct my life so that I can do this podcast right now. And so for me, that was a series of decisions in the moment that meant saying no to dinner right away, that meant to asking for what I needed from, my mom who's in the house right now. It came from going outside and reconnecting with myself, taking some deep breaths, really, listening to the wind and all of that. And that might sound hokey to some people, but to me, that reconnection with nature, that's what it's all about. And I want to talk to you more about that today in this episode as well. So that is how I direct myself to do the things that part of my brain tells me I don't want to do. And yet there's another part of my brain that says, yes, you do want to do it. Do it. Make it happen. That is how I direct my brain. And that all comes from personal power. And that is something that I have been reclaiming for myself over the years. This was not something that happened overnight. So I want to suggest to you, if this is the first time maybe you're hearing of this concept, that this is going to take some doing. I'm still reclaiming personal power. There is so much to this. You will never go far enough down the rabbit hole to really get to the bottom of it. But what you want is the ability to tell yourself what to do, to direct yourself intentionally. And personal power is required to do this. So, where does this term come from? It's been used a lot recently, but the first time I heard of it was within some books that I read and from someone that I followed, Jim Fortin. So, the books that I'm referring to are written by Carlos Castaneda. And Carlos Castaneda was a writer in the 60s and 70s. And in the 70s, he wrote several books about Don Juan. And the first four books of that Don Juan series were actually based on ghost written, a life of a real life person. And his name is Don Javier. And I am very fortunate to get to work with Don Javier. Don Javier is a shaman. He is someone who is very connected with nature. He's very powerful. He's very connected in ways that I didn't know a person or a being could be. And I'm very fortunate that I get to work with him and that I've been learning this concept of personal power through him. And if you ever want to read the books, I highly recommend the first four, but the ones after that are not ghostwriting Don Javier's life. So if that's something that interests you, that's something that you can look into. So how do we lose personal power in the first place, right? If we're reclaiming personal power, it means that we've lost it somewhere along the way. That personal power is actually something we give away, usually pretty young, because we have all of these societal influences, our parents, our schooling. It could be the legal profession, right? We have magazine covers, right? If you're a woman, you know that there are magazine covers when you're walking up to the grocery stand telling you that you should weigh 120 pounds and you should, eat these certain foods and you should look this certain way. And if you don't look this particular way, then there's something wrong with you. So we get all of this societal messaging that comes from different arenas in our life. And when we're young, we often just say, oh, okay, I guess that's just the way it is. I need to say yes when my parents tell me to do something, and I need to do what my teacher tells me to do, and I need to do what the government tells me to do, and then I'm going to be happy and I'm going to be successful, and all the things are going to line up. That is definitely how I lived my life for a very long time. I was very trusting. I believed that, I was just going to have, work really hard. I was going to work day and night, and I was going to prove myself and prove my worth, and I was going to get paid a lot of money, and then I would be fine. I'd be taken care of. But in the process of doing that, I also gave away a lot of my personal power. And so then I was always looking to others to make decisions for me. I was looking to others to tell me, like, oh my gosh, tell me what I'm supposed to do. Give me a workout plan. Tell me how I'm supposed to be using my time. And I see this so often with lawyers who tell me, like, oh, I wish I just had an assistant who would just tell me what to do all the time. And then I wouldn't even have to think about it. Delegating all of their personal responsibility, all of their personal power to somebody else. And it sounds really nice. It sounds really pretty, but the truth is that if we are giving away our personal power, then we are not taking full responsibility of our lives. If you are in a law practice where you want to build your business, but you're telling yourself, I don't have time, I don't have energy, I don't know how, then you're giving your power away because you're not finding solutions. So few people actually come to this realization that they need to be the ones who become the problem solvers in their practice. And, I have Timepiece for Lawyers is open right now for enrollment. And that's a lot of what I work on with the lawyers who are in there, is really reclaiming their ability to say, this is what I want. I'm deciding that this is what I am doing. Here's how I'm going to do it. And I am going to make it happen. Becoming that kind of decisive person who has that personal power, the person who can create boundaries and stick to them, but not be angry at the person if they break a boundary. It's up to the person who is creating the boundary to enforce it, doing it out of compassion and kindness and not out of anger and frustration. And that is really what personal power is. It's not about forcing. It's not about pushing. It's not about pulling. It's about being in balance and in harmony within yourself. It's really interesting because when I think of it that way, what's required to reclaim personal power is to become in harmony within yourself. It's to understand yourself on a deeper level, on a level maybe that you're not even familiar with. How do you think? How do you feel? What do you need? What do you want? And very few lawyers who initially come to me know the answers to those questions. And so I'm helping them reconnect with those aspects of themselves that maybe have been forgotten. Because at some point in your life, you had desires, you had wants, you knew what you wanted, and then when you started to get into this societal influence, when you started to be boxed in by the legal profession, by observing what was going on with other lawyers, seeing how other lawyers were, seeing what other lawyers thought was successful, then we began shaping ourselves to emulate that. I had so many lawyers in my office when I was coming up, staying till all hours. I really thought, wow, you must really be committed and really love your work in order to stay till 9 o'clock at night and not go home to your family. Like I thought, wow, she's really committed. And that's what it means to be successful. That's what it means to be a good lawyer. But that was not the definition of success that I wanted to emulate. I just didn't know it. That was just what I saw around me. And I started to filter everything I did and everything that I became through this lens of, well, what are other people going to think of me? What are other lawyers in the office going to think about me if I leave at 4 o'clock to go to yoga at 4:30? Are they going to think I'm not committed, that I'm lazy, that I'm not a hard worker? All things that I either identified with being a really hard worker, or I pushed away this identity of seeming lazy, seeming like I wasn't committed. And if I were in balance at that time, what other people thought wouldn't matter to me. But I was not in balance. And I see where I'm not in balance even now, where I might think, oh my gosh, like, what are people going to think if I share this story? What are people going to think if I bring this to the table? And then when I feel that hesitancy, when I feel that fear, I know I'm out of balance. And then I need to come back into my center and say, what do I want? How do I want to approach this? What is the decision I want to make and how will I make it happen? But so few of us really tap into that because we are so at the mercy or believe we're at the mercy of the work. And when lawyers come into timepiece, really they're coming in at the mercy of the work. And that's exactly where you're supposed to come in. Or if maybe you've gone through timepiece once or twice before, you are now making some tweaks. You're recognizing, yes, I want to make these tweaks. I see progress here. I want to keep going. Give me more. For those of you who have not been in timepiece before, I want you to come into timepiece with the invitation to take yourself to a whole new level, to connect with yourself at a whole new level, to feel into your feelings and not just analyze them, right? Because this is something that comes up time and again, which is because we are so used to thinking about our work, thinking about are we, using the correct law? What's the strategy behind what we're doing? We have become unattached from our feelings, from what we feel day to day. So remember at the beginning of this episode, I shared with you that as soon as I noticed the thought that I didn't want to record the podcast today, I paused because I actually knew that was a lie. I had actually put on my calendar that I was going to record my podcast at that time. And if I didn't do it, I knew in that moment I would feel really disappointed because I still have to do some work. I still got to get a podcast done, whether it's this or a best of. And I wasn't about to disappoint myself. I wanted to be in alignment with who I wanted to be. And that meant I needed to take a moment. But if you're in a rush, rushing from place to place, from appearance to appearance, from work item to work item, you will not have the space to make those just notice what's happening, question what's happening, and then make decisions that are in your best interest. I was actually on a call with a client right before this podcast, which was so funny because it's right on point, which was my client wanted to go to the gym, but it was very clear to me that they didn't want to go to the gym. They said they did, but they didn't because they weren't putting it on their calendar. They weren't committing to it. And even just the act of committing to it is enough to give you the awareness when you're not going to do it, right? You're watching your brain say, no, 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 I don't want to go. I don't want to go. You're watching your brain fight you to actually get to the gym. Then you actually get that moment where you can say, whoa, wait a minute. This is the place where I get to make a decision. I get to decide, do I want to not go to the gym and feel bad about myself afterwards? Or do I just want to make it happen? And if I just want to make it happen, how do I make it happen? Not just, it's not going to happen or I can't figure it out. It's like, how do I make it happen? What favor do I have to call in? Who do I have to ask help from? What do I need to prepare right now just to get myself out the door? And yes, it takes practice. I did not just become this person who did the things that I said I was going to do on my calendar. It took practice. It took me being willing to be kind to myself when I didn't do the thing that was on my calendar. It took me being willing to fail and say, look, I'm not going to make that failure mean anything about me. It's not going to mean anything about my ability to be successful. It's not going to mean anything about my ability to help people. So I want you to just think about this reclamation of personal power in terms of this connection with yourself. And working with a shaman has been a totally new level of me getting to reconnect with myself. And it allows me to quiet myself in a way that I never experienced before. And you can do it too, even if you're not working with a shaman, right? So I also want to just mention there is a shaman named Don Javier on YouTube. That's not him. My shaman does not have an online presence. So I just want to let you know that if you go Googling, that you're not going to find him on the Googles. So when you begin to clean up your mind, you begin to be able to clean up how you use your time. And cleaning up your mind is mindset, and it's also beginning to quiet the mind. It's beginning to become more present. And one of the things that I experienced myself, and I see 99% of the lawyers I work with, maybe 100% of the lawyers that I work with start out as not being able to be quiet within themselves, not be able to slow down enough internally to notice the thoughts and then to ask themselves, how do they feel? Because they're so busy rushing from appointment to appointment, from case to case, that they have totally missed that connection point within themselves. This is not your fault if you're resonating with this and you're like, why am I disconnected? Why can't I just get myself to be quiet within myself? I notice this about myself, that I'm always in a hurry. I'm always busy. Why can't I just do it? Know that it's not your fault, that you haven't been given the tools to do this, that you've had a society that basically varnishes, is that the right word? That basically puts people on a pedestal who are, quote, always busy, who are working hard, whatever that means, and are killing themselves. And on the outside, they look like they have it all together. They've got the Land Rover, they've got the nice home, they've got the 2.5 kids and the 2.5 dogs, right? They go to all the family gatherings, they go to all the holiday events. They seem like they're very put together. But inside, and I know this because I was this person and I talked to so many lawyers who are these people too, inside they feel disconnected. Inside they feel like there's something missing and they can't understand what it is. So part of the reason I wanted to bring this topic to the podcast is because inside Timepiece for Lawyers, we're really doing the work of reconnecting you. We're really doing the work of bringing you back to yourself, of helping you reclaim this personal power that it's been diminished over the years for no fault of your own. It simply has been something that has diminished because of the societal influences. And those societal influences are powerful. It's so difficult to notice when they are having an impact on you unless you have somebody who's actually saying, like I am right here, like, what are those influences of your religion, the influences of your parents, the influences of your workspaces? I was talking to a lawyer today who just noticed for the first time that one of the things that she was mimicking in her business was something that she saw in Big Law when she was working for a firm. She brought it into her own firm, which is, if your desk is messy, that means you have work and that you're doing a good job. And if your desk is clean, then that must mean you're not doing work and that you are probably on your way out of the office. It's a really fascinating observation, right? Because there is absolutely no connection between being neat and having work. You can be neat and have work. But her brain associated this in Big Law, that in that atmosphere, when lawyers saw a messy desk, they would say, oh, they must be working hard. And she absorbed that. And then she gave away her personal power and said, well, I guess I can't have a clean desk, or that means I'm not working hard. I don't have work. She didn't say that verbally, right? That wasn't a conscious thought, but subconsciously, that's exactly what's happening. And it reflected itself onto her workspace. So that is what happens when we don't have somebody to help us reconnect. And I have multiple people who've been helping me over the years reconnect with myself, reclaim my personal power, understand how to talk to myself, understand how to notice that internal battle, pause with that internal battle, and then direct myself to do what I said I wanted to do. And that's really what I see one huge benefit of personal power as being is being able to direct myself to do what I said I was going to do. And this is something that every single one of us can do, every single one of us. Another place where I see this come up, this lack of personal power is in the fears that come up when we're being referred to as the boss. And I've had this come up recently in several calls, which is why I wanted to bring this up because I have many lawyers who run their own practices. They have boutique law firms or they're in a position of authority, right? They're a partner, they have authority over other people. But in our society, there has been very much this push against having authority, right? Being somebody who is quote unquote the boss. And you hear a lot of female empowerment now saying like, oh, girl boss this, girl boss that, all of that, right? There's this kind of female empowerment around it. But truly, there are a lot of people, both men and women, who do not like being called the boss in their firm because they have associations with it being authoritarian, because they have had experiences with their bosses in the past that were not, they didn't feel good to them. They felt like they were being bossed around, right? Or for instance, I have another client who says, well, when she hears, I'm the boss, she actually hears I'm bossy. That's what she internalizes. And so she doesn't want to be the person who is bossy, but those are different things. A boss is a person who is in authority, a person who is a leader, a person who is there to lead their team and to help the people that they want to help, their clients, move their cases forward, to help their employees, help their clients move their cases forward, to create a cohesiveness within the firm, within their business that allows them to get things done and creates a culture that they want to create, one where they're not necessarily staying all night long, like a big law firm might have people do, where you have the absolute power to leave early if you want to, where you get to set the rules for yourself. But there is so much fear around what other people will think about how you use that power that you shrink from it. And I'm really curious, do you have power that you shrink from? Because that would be an indication that you're not reclaiming personal power in that moment, but you're actually pushing it away. And when you are connected with yourself and you are aligned with yourself, you're not pushing power away, you are confident in it. When you know that you are acting from good intentions, when you know you are acting from compassion, when you know you are acting from heart, you are in your center. You are someone who has personal power. I have a client who, such a kind-hearted attorney who loves his employees, absolutely adores his job, just loves his family, like it's just so kind-hearted and has this part of him that doesn't want to leave the office early because there's a little bit of him that's afraid that his employees are going to suddenly not work. But when we coached on it, it was very clear he fully trusts his employees to continue working. And actually, he wouldn't even mind if they left a little early if they got all their work done. And that actually seems to be the pattern that's been going on for a while. So that fits the culture of the firm. But until he could really claim that power for himself to say, hey, I get to leave the office early when I want to, because this is my firm. I am the person who gets to set the rules. I am the person who gets to say, you can leave early. And in fact, he does until he recognized that he actually is somebody who people want to work for, enjoy working for, and that he can trust his employees. Well, then it was much more difficult for him to leave the office. I see this all the time, right? When you own your own firm, there's all of these little behaviors that we take on from maybe the first firm that we work at. And that's that societal influence that I'm talking about, where we think we need to behave a certain way to be successful, to show people this is how you work and this is how you get work done. I need to have a messy desk. I need to not leave the office early. I need to stay at the office late so other people can see that this is what it means to be successful, that this is what it means to be a hard worker. But what exactly are you doing? Are you creating the culture that you want intentionally? And if I asked you that face to face, you'd probably say, no, that's not the culture I want to create. I want to create a culture that feels good, that's family oriented, that allows me to be the person I want to be, to grow and expand my business the way I want to, but not force my employees to stay at work till 8 o'clock at night because I want them to enjoy their life. And those are the kinds of things that you can do with so much more confidence when you are reconnected with yourself, when you step into and reclaim your personal power, when you are able to really know yourself on a deeper level and trust yourself on a deeper level. And we really break trust so often with ourselves. Like coming back to that story where I was telling you that this podcast almost didn't happen if but for me catching my brain, right? But for me recognizing, oh, wait a minute, this is actually what I want. Because I could have said, oh, no, we're going to put that aside. It's not that important. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'll do that tomorrow. It would be a totally different podcast, right? You get a totally different vibe from it. You wouldn't even have the story wrapped up in this podcast. But I needed to learn how to direct myself. And that could only come from reconnecting with myself, being familiar with my thoughts, being familiar with my feelings, knowing what I need to regroup, which is outdoor time. So I want to bring this back to Don Javier because I brought him up earlier in this episode. And what I have really learned from working with him as a shaman is that it is so important. It is of utmost importance that I am connected within myself, that I am compassionate to myself and to others, that I walk with reverence throughout my day. And I will tell you, this is not an easy task. You know, if you pick this path of one with heart, one where you are moving forward in your life in a way where you're really proud of your actions, where you are directing your mind intentionally, where you are giving attention, where you want to give it to your family, to, you know, the people who are most important to you, to yourself. It is not an easy path. And it's one that a lot of people won't understand. A lot of people won't understand, well, why do you want to have so much time to yourself? Why do you want to go outside and go for a walk? Why do you want to leave the office early? Why do you want to, you know, spend so much time doing whatever activity is that really connects you with yourself? You know, I'll see this with lawyers who come to me and they don't even fully understand what they need, but they know that what's happening right now isn't working for them, that the anxiety that they're feeling doesn't feel right, that the stress that they're feeling is not in alignment with who they want to be. And what I have learned from working with a shaman is that it is my pleasure, my most beautiful path to get to connect with myself. And one of the things, if you go back to the ancient Greeks, what's the saying? It's know thyself. You've got to know yourself in order to direct yourself. You've got to know what you want. And you have to know yourself so intimately that you can direct yourself on the spot so that you can notice when your mind is lying to you, so that you can notice when the feelings that you have in your body, anxiety, pressure, little hesitation, fear, you notice those feelings and you can question them and ask yourself, wait a minute, what's out of alignment right now? Because that's what I did this afternoon is say, wait a minute, there's a feeling here that doesn't feel quite right. What's out of alignment? Oh, I really do want to do my podcast. How do I make it happen? And then I can exercise that personal power and make it happen. But that takes time and that takes reconnecting with yourself and that takes doing this work with devotion, with love for yourself. And honestly, when you do this work, it will filter out to everyone. It filters out to the people that you work with, your clients, it filters out to your family, your friends. And oh my gosh, it's one of those things that you begin to feel so proud of the person that you become. And it's not as if you're waiting to become a person that does all of these things. You become more of yourself now in this moment. You become present with yourself now. You focus on what you need now. You check in with yourself now. You do the things that you need for yourself. You ask for the help you want now. It all starts now. And as you do it, that one step at a time, one step in front of the other, you become a totally different version of you. And I'm so excited that I get to even share this with you because looking at myself now, I'm a totally different version of myself than I was even a year ago, much less 10 years ago. And I love that I get to share with you possibility because it is 100% within your power to begin to reclaim that personal power, to reclaim yourself, to know what you want, to know yourself on such an intimate level that you can redirect yourself, that you can do the things that you say you want to do, that you can put this on your calendar and your brain's going to want to fight you and you just say, no, I am not going to do that. I am going to do this. And then you make it happen. And that's so much of what I talk about in this podcast. And that's most definitely what we're going to be talking about in Timepiece for Lawyers. So I want to invite you to sign up now. The very first class is the first week of May. So sign up now. You're going to get access to everything already inside of Timepiece. It is, oh my gosh, there's so much great content in there. You've not only got the timepiece process, which is going to give you exactly step by step what I do to plan my calendar, but it's also going to give you access to amazing bonuses that are going to help you really do anything from hiring to raising your rates to creating systems and processes. You are going to get all of the replays from prior timepiece classes. So you're going to have topics ranging from boundaries to caretaking to all of these different things. And you get that right now, even before we start our sessions, our group coaching sessions, where I get to work with you. I get to work with you on exactly what you need and what you've been thinking about and how you want to proceed in your life, what you want to create intentionally. I get to work with you on that. And that is all right now available to you. So go to dinacataldo.com/timepiece, PEACE. That's dinacataldo.com/timepiece and sign up now. I'm really looking forward to this next chapter of Timepiece. It just keeps getting better and better. I keep becoming more connected with myself. And so I get to bring more and more of what I'm learning to you in our sessions. And it's just a pleasure. So thank you so much. I hope you have a fabulous day. Bye.